What's up, guys? In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to configure a redundant interface on your Fortigate firewall. What this is great for is if you have multiple switches that are uplinked to your Fortigate currently with a single connection from one of the switches to the firewall. This allows you the ability to make another connection to one of the other switches in the stack. So that's switch one, if that's your current uplink to the firewall, goes down. There's another way for the switches to be able to access the firewall and reach the internet. Another cool thing about the redundant interface, if you know or have worked with Fortinet products, if you create a single interface and trunk VLANs off of it on the Fortigate, if that interface goes bad or you need to move that to another physical interface at any time in the future, you have to delete all the references to those VLANs and all that configuration, or backup config, edit it all in a text file, re-upload it to your Fortigate, and hope that it all works out. If you configure a redundant interface, you can select and deselect interfaces to add to that link at any time. So for instance, if you configure port 1, let's just say, you configure port 1 as a redundant interface, and somewhere down the line you want port 2 to be your uplink to the firewall instead of port 1. Instead of having to do anything with the config, all you have to do is add port 2 to the redundant interface. So it's really cool. Just to give a quick little diagram of what we're going to be doing and how we're going to hook it up today. We have our Fortigate 60F, and I'm going to configure ports 1 and 5 in a redundant interface, and then I'm going to connect two little ubiquity switches. And then I'm going to connect my PC to those switches, and we're going to see how long it takes for the link to fail over. Let's go ahead and get started. We're going to hop back on the Fortigate. We're going to do Create New under Network Interfaces. We're going to select Interface. I'm going to call it the redundant demo. For the type of interface, we want to select redundant interface. And for your interface members, you're going to select the ports that you want here. In the diagram that I just showed, we did ports 1 and 5. I made sure that my firewall had no references to these interfaces so that we could add them here. If your interfaces have references, it won't allow you to add them. So I'm going to go ahead and click those here. I'm going to set an IP address. I'm going to turn on DHCP. All right, so my redundant interface should be set. Okay, so as you can see, both of those ports are lit. If we look back at our diagram, I have one of my ubiquity switches connected from port 1 to port 5, the other port 1 to port 1, and then they're connected to each other as well on port 4. And one other thing that we want to do here is we want to make sure that my redundant interface has internet access so that my ubiquity switches can come online. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add that to one of my zones that already has internet access. Okay. So in a redundant interface, both of these are showing green. However, the Fortigate is only listening on one connection at a time. If it detects that one of these ports goes down, it'll listen on the other one, right? So we need to know which one currently is our master so that I can go pull the plug on the other one and test the failover. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch the command line. And the command for this is diagnose netlink redundant name and then redundant demo. You put the name of the interface. Okay. And let me move my face here. So we can see that our redundant interface is up. We can see that two ports are associated with the interface. And we can see that the current master, the one that's prioritized over the other one, the one that's passing traffic, is port 1. And we can see our two members here, member internal 1, internal 5. So everything's looking good at this point. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug my PC into the switch so that we can test failover. All right, so I have my PC plugged in. I'm going to go ahead and just run the command to make sure that I have an IP address on the subnet where my redundant interface lives. All right, so my PC is 1060.60.22. I'm going to go ahead and ping out just to see if I can get connection. And all looks good. So right now, my computer is plugged into the switch that is connected as master, right? I'm plugged into this one, which is in port 1. Port 1 is the master when we ran our command. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull the cable from the switch that I'm connected to the Fortigate, and we're going to see how many pings drop from my device. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start a ping. I'm going to start a ping, and then we're going to see how many drop while it fails over. All right, so let's check our master. Okay, so we can see that the current master is port 5. So now if we take a look at our redundant interface, we can see port 1 is down and port 5 is up, which explains why that's the current master. So if I go back and see how many pings I dropped, looks like I might have dropped 2. Yeah, 80 packets transmitted. So I dropped 2 pings before the redundant interface failed over to the other switch. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug that switch back in. I'm going to start the ping test, and we'll see what the failover back looks like. So I'm going to start my pings. All right, and let's go and see if 1 took over again as master. Run that command one more time. Okay, so port 1 has taken back over. Let's see how many pings we lost, if any. 0% packet loss. So I was able to fail back over once 1 was lit and, provide us with basically seamless failover to using port 1. Yeah, so really cool. One of the other things that I mentioned kind of at the first part of the video was also just not using it as a failover mechanism only, but if you have a ton of VLANs, for instance, like I do on one of these ports, right, and you configure that on a single interface, if you ever do decide you want to move that to a separate physical interface, it's going to be a huge headache. So even if you're not going to set this up in a failover setting for whatever reason, it would be beneficial just to do this, because if in that point, if you ever want to change the interface associated with your trunk connection, your switches with VLANs, it would be very easy to do so. So again, I'll just kind of throw this diagram up here just so you can see how we had things set up and how we tested that failover. I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop a comment down below and I'll try to get back to you. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.